Hey everyone, episode 21 of the Game Audio Vlog here. We're on our fourth week, I believe. Today is Monday. So we are going back to continue the series that we started last week, which is doing a full sound design of a demo project in Unity and Wwise. The game that we're working on is Into the Space. And if you have not checked out the rest of the series, I would suggest you go back to video number 1, which was Monday of last week, and start from there before you continue. If you are all caught up, we are doing player engine sounds today for your spaceship. And like before, I'm not going to cover in super in-depth about how I went about creating an engine noise. I'd rather give you kind of the rough pencil sketch version of what I've done and let you flesh it out from there. So I did all of this in Wwise. You can do it in DAW or however you feel comfortable doing it. But for me, I went in just like what we did with the player laser. You can see on the right-hand side of the image, or right-hand image here, in the actor mixer hierarchy, I've got my player ship folder to contain all my player ship sounds, and then in there, highlighted at the very bottom, is the sound effect of player engine. That was made through, you actually you right-click and do a new sound, and which should pop up this little icon with the speaker there, and then you can rename it whatever you want. And then in the right-hand side there, when you double-click Player Engine, or whatever you call it, you can see the Contents Editor, which is the bottom of the left-hand side graphic here. And then you can see Add Source is the tiny little button that you probably cannot see even if it's full screen, but it's there. Tiny little button on the right-hand side at the very bottom. If you do Add Source, you can start a Wwise tone generator, which of course you can do in a DAW if you want to too, and then import the sound. But I just went ahead and made it in Wwise because it's all in one thing and it's easier that way for me. And then also what I'm showing you here that I didn't show you before with the player laser as I'm doing effects. So the tone generator is spitting out pink noise for me because I think pink noise sounded a little bit cooler than white noise in terms of using it for an engine sound. But again, this is subjective, do what you want. And then I used a parametric EQ, which I'm pretty sure was mostly just a low pass filter to get that rumble that we want. And then what I've used here in effect number 1, which is the second effect in the chain, is a guitar distortion. And that comes into play primarily with the RTPCs. If you're unfamiliar with what an RTPC is, it is a real-time parameter control in Wwise, which essentially changes the sound as a player does an input. So in this case, when the player moves up, down, left, right around the screen, the guitar distortion swells essentially and makes the pink noise kind of break up a little bit, and it sounds like the engine for the player ship is moving, is adding some velocity to it, which sounds pretty cool. We're not going to get into in-depth of how I did that today. We'll cover that with RTPCs later, but I just wanted to show you the effect chain that I was using. That's just simple 2 things back to back to build this engine sound. So once you've done and made your player engine sound, you, of course, as we did before with the player laser, you want to go into your events tab in Wwise, make a new event. You're going to want to make a play event that's for the player engine. So you'll have just a single action that's play. Then in the bottom here, you can see I've mixed it just for what I wanted at the time. It's at -6. And then with your action properties, which is the thing in the middle there, you don't want it to delay because you don't want the engine sound to come in after you've started the game and after you've been playing around for a little bit, because that would be weird. But you would fade in time I found is appropriate. 1.25 seconds is what I've got here with a nice curve to it. That, I believe, kind of fades the engine in nice and smoothly, as well as I think the player kind of pops up on the screen a little bit, if I remember correctly. So it's not like you're going to hit the player over the head with the engine noise as soon as the game starts. It just kind of fades in nicely. And then, of course, you want the probability to be 100% because you always want an engine on your player. So The thing that's different than the player laser that the player engine provides is we actually have to stop it, which sounds kind of different if you haven't done this before. You would assume that an engine or that a sound event would just stop when there's no need to play it, but that's not the case. You have to tell Wwise to actually stop the sound event once the player ship is destroyed. So we do need to make a second event called engine stop, or I think it's player engine stop is what I called it, because we do have an enemy engine, so you have to have an enemy engine stop too. So this way, when the player gets destroyed, the action stop will happen, and you want it to stop immediately. So there's in the action properties, you have no delay and no fade out. It just cuts immediately. And then I've also mixed this to -6, or excuse me, -6 is what the player engine is, period. So you have your play, you have your stop event, and then you want to go ahead and build your sound bank, which you've done already, so you just need to generate it. You need to bring your play and stop events and drag them into the sound bank, as we've shown you before in the creating a sound bank video. It's the same thing every time. You just drag your event into the sound bank, hit generate, hit save, then go into Unity, which I'm showing right here. And up in the top left-hand corner, you'll see your hierarchy. You can click player ship, and then in the inspector, you'll see the image on the right-hand side here. I've dragged my window all the way down so you can see. All you need to do is click add component, which is the button at the bottom, and then you want 2 new AK events. So you want a start event for your player engine start, or whatever you called the event for your play for your engine, and then you also want a event for trigger on destroy for your player engine stop, or again whatever you've called your stop event. So on start, your player engine will start, and on destroy of your ship, when your ship gets destroyed, the player engine, your engine will stop. It's pretty straightforward, and hopefully, I mean, Unity makes it really, really easy for you. You'll see here at the very bottom, I have a third AK event that's on destroy, and my event name is called player destroyed, and that's an explosion sound for when the player gets blown up. We'll cover that a little while down the road, but I mean, it's the exact same thing. It's the same process. You've got a sound effect, which goes to an event that then has a play event, which is player destroyed, and it triggers on destroy. It's the exact same kind of thought process behind the whole thing. So that's it. Go ahead and make your play and make your stop events, make your sound for your ping noise for your player engine, and test it. It's probably not going to sound unbelievable because we don't have any like hardcore mixing or RTPCs on it yet. But, you know, get it in the ballpark of something that's useful and workable, and then we'll move on. So tomorrow we'll be back again, and we're going to do the exact same thing that we did with Player Laser, except adapt it to the enemies. We're going to go over that whole process one more time in a little bit more depth on some certain things. But yeah, go ahead, test this out. If you have any issues or errors, comment below in the YouTube video or get me on Twitter at AdamTCroft. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.